Hello and welcome back to the JamesFR YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time for another opinion piece based on current events. So I think I did one a couple of months ago on Man City and financial fair play, but today's focus is the Premier League pay-per-view system, which is going to be implemented over the coming weeks. Now I know everyone's going on about Project Big Picture at the moment, and rightfully so, because there are many different facets to it which can be taken away, be it positive and negative, but I decided instead to focus on the pay-per-view system, which is going to be implemented by the Premier League, and give my thoughts on it. Disclaimer, they're not very positive. So for a bit of backstory as to what it is and why it is being implemented, it's pretty obvious that we're in the second wave of the coronavirus pandemic, which is currently engulfing the world right now. And as a result of that, it's pretty unlikely that fans will be allowed back into stadia until at least March. So as a result of this, we can't actually see games live in the flesh for certainly the foreseeable future, and again, probably in all likelihood not until next year. Therefore, there's been a new incentive by Sky and BT, the two major broadcasters of Premier League games at the moment, to broadcast certain matches on their Sky Sports or BT Sport box office channel, which means you have to pay to watch those games. Now, I believe the price is £14.95 per game. So you need to pay an extra £14.95 to watch a certain game being played if they're on this particular channel. 3 games per match day will be behind the paywall, and the Sky Sports managing director Rob Webster was quoted as saying that they wanted to, quote, provide the service for supporters who are no longer able to attend and to generate match day revenue. Of course, because big clubs, or just clubs in general, can't actually gain revenue through ticket sales for the time being, there has to be a different way around it in their eyes, so therefore they've introduced this pay-per-view system. Of course, there has been a massive increase of live games being shown on our TVs in recent times. I believe all of the final 92 games post-lockdown for football last season were all broadcast on some major channel, be it Sky, BT or BBC live. So every single game was shown regardless of what time it kicked off at. And as a result of this, it obviously made football more accessible because all of the games are now being broadcast, even with the 3 PM curfew for some reason, which still exists, although I think they're putting it on hold obviously for the time being whilst no fans can actually attend the games. So there are loads more games that are being televised, which is good, but what you've got to bear in mind is that most of them are behind a paywall, including Sky and BT already. Now here comes the vitriol. Are we forgetting that we already need like a pre-existing Sky Sports or BT Sports subscription to watch Premier League games for the most part, which, by the way, as you might have been able to guess, costs money in the first place. So essentially what you're doing is you're paying more money on top of more money, which doesn't really make any sense. Because if you're already paying for a Sky Sports subscription, why would you want to pay a little bit extra to watch a game which you could already have seen or would normally have seen just by your standard Sky Sports or BT Sports subscription? Why do you need to put it behind an extra paywall? Furthermore, there's a huge discrepancy in which teams are being put behind this pay-per-view system, as Liverpool's next 3 games aren't behind the pay-per-view system, but West Brom's are. So therefore it's obvious that Liverpool are the more enticing prospect, so therefore they'll be the ones who will draw the most viewers for their standard games, but West Brom's might not. But even then, they'll still have to pay essentially £45 to watch their next 3 games on top of what they already pay for their monthly Sky Sports or BT Sports subscription. So it doesn't really make much sense in that front. Surely if you're going to do a pay-per-view system, you put one team or one game per team behind the paywall, but at the moment, that isn't happening. Why? As is already, the bulk of the money coming into Premier League clubs comes from the TV rights, and the latest deal was £4.35 billion in worth, and of course the games were shared between Sky, BT and Amazon Prime at the time. Obviously this is before COVID kicked in. But these are all pre-paying services, and the BBC broadcast their first live Premier League games of all time, and the first that they've done in the First Division or Premier League since 1988. And only 5 or 6 games since have not been behind this paywall. I mean, obviously BBC have Match of the Day, but they've not broadcast a single game, or didn't broadcast a single game, for 32 years live in the Premier League or First Division. But this is the time now where we want football to be accessible, we want football to be seen regardless, without a paywall or anything like that. But now you're putting a paywall on top of a paywall. Like, coronavirus has damaged the country significantly in terms of the financial impact that it's had, with obviously loads of industries going under or bankruptcies, and there's obviously mass unemployment. And right now, many people want football to be readily available to them, and that isn't happening already for some people. They're being priced out of watching the game that they love, which is meant to be based on the simplicity of just being able to play it regardless of what you have. I mean, all you need is just some kind of football or football related object, and there you go. You have the materials necessary for either a kickabout in the park or whatever it might be, and it's meant to be the simple game. But now, obviously as a result of the commercialization of the globe as a whole, it has in turn become perhaps even more commercialized than anything else, and this pay-per-view thing basically encapsulates the entirety of what football has become. Prices to watch games in England, when of course we actually can, are already extortionate, and I am well aware of this, because the average season ticket prices in 2018-19 in England were £516, with Liverpool charging £685, Bournemouth £550, Chelsea £595, and Arsenal staggering £891, all for their cheapest season tickets. Their cheapest, not the most expensive, their cheapest. £891. That's mental. It just means that fans are being priced out of games already. Hence the average age of a Premier League fan rising from 25 in the mid-1980s to 47 now. By contrast, Serie A is £225, La Liga £205, Liga 172, and the Bundesliga just £159, with Bayern Munich, the current European champions, seeing their cheapest season ticket for last season being £130. And it's pretty obvious that you can tell that the Bundesliga has the highest average attendance in Europe as a result of this. Like, I guess the correlation is pretty clear. In this current economic climate where everything faces mass uncertainty, even football clubs in the higher regions, with Arsenal, I believe, sacking off a lot of their staff, although they still continue to pay Mesut Ozil £350,000 a week, which doesn't really make much sense to me considering he is literally rotting on the bench. But whatever. But regardless, we need sports in our lives right now to brighten us up, because, well, most of us are all stuck inside. Like where I am, Manchester, it's very likely that we're going to head into tier 3, whatever that is, of local lockdown stuff. And we need things like football, like the arts, to keep us going, to keep us happy, to keep us enlightened, to keep us motivated, to keep on going. And we need it to be more accessible. But as a result of this paywall, we're being priced out even more when we need it even less. We didn't even need it in the first place, to be honest. But again, that's just the hyper-commercialization of football. What can you do? I'm also well aware, as someone did correctly point out on a website, I think it was the BBC, that a standard match ticket does cost more than this pay-per-view system, but you're already needing to pay money to watch the games live as is, so why do you need to pay more? It's literally like going to a match in the stadium live, and then all of a sudden you sit down in your seat, and then you have this virtual reality headset or whatever put over you, or a blindfold, say. And then all of a sudden you have to pay an extra £15 to lift the blindfold off your head or watch the game through the virtual reality set or anything like that, and you have no choice. If you decline, then you can't watch the game even though you've already paid however many pounds to go into the stadium. That's the analogy I'm trying to get at here. I hope that kind of made sense. I think it did, fingers crossed. But that's the point, is that you are having to pay extra on top of what you're already paying to watch the game. Like, can someone please explain that to me? It's just the biggest symbol of avarice and greed. They don't need it right now. They just don't need this. They don't need to be adding this in to what we're already paying for. Like, let us just watch football as is and let the pre-existing deal just do its thing. Is it that much to ask? Essentially, what it is a plan to just try and suck money out of us, because Sky believe people are suckers and they'll just offer whatever and they think that they'll get away with it. I read a quote from, Gary Caffel of moneysavingexpert.com, and he used the phrase cash cow. Basically, that's what anyone who does this pay-per-view service or uses this pay-per-view service is. Because essentially all they're doing, all Sky are doing, is sucking the money out of us even more than they already are, and BT as well, mustn't forget them. They're just sucking the money out of us, and for those who already couldn't afford it, who already can't afford to watch the games as is, they now can't afford it even more if they support West Brom, for example, who, as I mentioned earlier, they're having to pay £45 to watch their 3 games on top of what they're already paying for their Sky Sports subscription. To an extent, I can very, very, very slightly understand monthly, but even so, you're still paying extra access for just 9 games a month as opposed to maybe 15 extra games a month or 20 extra games a month. But you're already paying extra to access those games per month anyway, so why would you need to pay any more? Honestly, I know I'm losing my mind at this, but this might come off as a bit rambling or whatever, but I hope that this kind of comes together at some point. Or did come together at some point, I don't know. An expert has also stated that this will drive fans towards illegal streams because obviously they'll watch the streams for free and therefore it gets around the pay-per-view system. And it's true. I know the Premier League have tried to cut down on illegal streams in recent times, but as a result of this, what they've done is essentially shot themselves in the foot and made sure that, well, people will turn to free streams much more, despite the fact that they were already trying to crack down on it. If they're trying to crack down on it, then don't put up another paywall to make the games even more inaccessible than what they already are. Basically, the corollaries of this are that many people will be less interested in watching it, the appeal is lost, the viewership subsequently falls, Sky lose money, and the Premier League subsequently suffers. And that is the potential domino effect which is very liable to happen with this, especially if, as I say, the appeal drops significantly, which is very likely to happen. So I really don't understand the logic with this. I really do not. But all in all, I think you can probably tell it's not a great idea in my opinion, and it may have very disastrous impacts on the Premier League and its income, as well as for its major broadcasters like, Amazon Prime and BT and Sky. And one hopes that they might see some sense and take away this system, but will they? Will they really? Probably not, unless there is literally no appeal whatsoever, in which case they will. But fingers crossed that they do actually see some sense and just think, oh wait, hang on a minute, we need to make football more accessible as opposed to less accessible. So let's actually make the games, or not put the games behind a pre-existing paywall on top, a new paywall on top of a pre-existing paywall. And that pretty much sums up my general thoughts on the whole Premier League pay-per-view situation. I mean, I don't know if this actually went anywhere. I don't know if it actually meant anything. It's just that I wanted to get my thoughts out there on it and just say how stupid an idea it is. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know why down in the comments below, or message me on any of my social medias. They can also be found in the description. And whilst you're there, hit the like button if you agree with it, hit subscribe, and until next time, I really don't know what this video was, jeez. But until next time anyway, I'll see you then.